Good morning, YouTube. I know a lot of people like to pretend that cars are good investments, or at least I try to because that's 100% of my portfolio. But cars are terrible, terrible, terrible investments.
It's like the basic dude math is like it never really works out. It's never a good idea.
No, you'll buy a cool old car and get it really cheap, but then you spend 3 times what you paid for it fixing it, and then sell it for $1,000 more than what you originally paid for it.
And then all you talk about is the profit that you made off of it.
Right.
It's kind of like gambling. All you talk about are the wins.
Exactly. So, CarEdge has a new list out of the cars with worst resale value, and this is based on new cars. And I think this list is going to change a lot as the years go by.
Right.
For one reason, I'll get to it in a little bit. But first, I'll give the list of the 10 worst. So
these are the 10 worst reselling cars.
Correct.
Resale value, got it.
So the least worst is the Ford Escape. 51.57%. And this is after 5 years. It's residual value, which I don't think is half bad. Losing half your money in 5 years on a cheaper car.
Right. 5
Not
years,
too bad.
yes.
Ford's having a lot of issues with transmissions on those, so I feel like that's why they're lower. You know that a 5-year-old Ford Escape is probably going through auction because it has a grenaded transmission. And
is it advertised like that?
No, that's why, they'll take the people will limp them in.
Right.
They are starting to screw up. They get a new car. They don't tell the dealer they're trading it into.
Right.
It goes to auction. Every dealer knows it's probably a 2 out of 3 chance I'm buying this Escape with a bad transmission.
Right.
So then the value's lower for that reason. So easy to spot there. The next least worst, I'm making this very complicated. Sort of like the game show. I got criticism on the game show, and she brought it up before we even started. So our last episode where we were guessing prices of cars, we just needed to guess the price.
Right.
Not the how much it went higher or lower, and then having to do math and then making you do math. So I apologize for that because I made that really stupid, complicated, and poor Jake had to edit that mess.
It's okay. Well, the problem is that I suggested just saying the price, but me being a girl, it's kind of hard for guys.
Oh, no. Guys will get it. We'll just do it higher or lower and all that. The high low, Oh, I saw in the comments and I apologize.
I needed to make it your idea somehow.
Exactly. I apologize. So, the ninth worst. How does that make it better? Okay. The ninth is the Chevrolet Camaro.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, okay.
And it has 51.13. They're all pretty close. But I think it's just a car that people buy and beat the snot out of.
Yeah.
And the V6 Camaros, after 5 years, the target buyer for that isn't very gentle with the cars usually, unless they're Tyler Potter and keep it in a hermetically sealed chamber. And the only time that he drives it is when he autocrosses or tracks it. He trailers it to the track. But
he must have an amazing spec one.
He has a ZL1, and then he does a temporary clear bar on the front. If he's tracking with other cars, then he'll put painter's tape on the nose to keep it from getting chipped.
I love that. But that's what you would do when you have that type of a car.
That's the gross joke is doing things like that is not being intimate with your girlfriend as much to save her for the next guy, basically.
I love that.
Usually it's in much sleazier terms and things, but so that's probably the excuse with the Camaro. The Expedition is number 8.
Really think that?
I don't know. The Ford Expedition, 50.88%. That is another car that people just buy and drive into the ground, put a bunch of miles on, haul families, so they do get a lot of abuse, and they're very expensive new, so big drop when it comes to use. Nissan Pathfinder, we're still in the 50s though, 50.67% is a similar vein, similar genre. Ford F-150, it drops though, 2%, 48.84% on the Ford F-150, which is the best-selling truck in America.
Right.
But after 5 years, means they have 100,000 miles on them, or getting close to it. Not as durable, or at least in the reputation, as say a Tundra or something like that. And they start to show their age after 5 years. Much better than say in the 1950s where cars were showing their age and we're done after a couple of years, but still. The Buick Enclave is another one on this list, 48.75%. And that's another car that is just not built all that well. So same as the Chevy, not the Traverse, but the bigger...
Blazer.
Well, it's the GMC Acadia and the Chevy whatever, and the name's escaping me right now. But it's just the luxury version of it, so it's more expensive. But then when it's used, it becomes worth about the same as the GMC and the Chevy versions of it. And they're just not built all that well. Transmission failures, once again, mechanical failures. It's a very unreliable car.
I don't know what the worst one is. The worst
We're getting there.
resale.
GMC Yukon XL is on there, 48.15% after 5 years. It's sort of similar to the Expedition, where they just get used and abused. So I can see that. Nissan Armada is the same one. The top one, so the Armada is 47.64. The top one with the worst resale value, though,
here we go.
is
what is it going to be?
the Nissan Leaf.
Oh gosh.
45.56%, because it is an electric car with a terrible reputation of being junk after a few years, the battery degradation.
But
the Leafs are like the poster
like,
child of battery degradation.
You're saying it has a reputation for it, but sometimes it's not always true. Does the reputation correct?
It's certainly true for the old ones, the first generation Leafs, which are 10 years old. You can find them all over the place for $1,000, $2,000 with the battery degraded to nothing. Like to barely get you down the street. Yeah, they're terrible. But I do think the Leaf is the worst on this list only because it's been around the longest. So we're at the 5-year mark. And if you look at the last 5 years, we've just exploded in electric car choices. And the depreciation on some of these cars after 1 year, 2 years, like our Lyric, is 50%.
It's crazy.
So at 5 years, because we bought this one for half off, what is it going to be on these electric cars in 5 years? And I feel like this list will dramatically change once these electric cars they've been making in the last couple of years, the Mustang Mach-E, the Ford Lightning, the Lyric necessarily, or the Blazer, so many other vehicles. Tesla's tend to hold their value a little bit better, but even recently the Model 3s have been horrendous in their depreciation on some of these newer ones. So it'll be interesting to see this list. I feel like it will dramatically transform in a couple of years once they hit the age for this 5-year max out.
So out of your hoopty collection, which car that you have sold do you think you took the biggest hit on as far as resale value? Like, is there anything eating away at you because you lost so much money on it?
Well, this is all the time for me. No, I mean, the Bentley Continental GT that I sold to Tavares was definitely a massive hit early in my YouTube career that felt really bad. A recent one, and it's going to be the Porsche 911 Turbo on Cars and Bids. That I did and made into a Safari. So I bought it for $24,000, spent at least $20,000 make it into a Safari, and then knocked an inlet pipe off and spent another $2,000 fixing it. It's 146,000 mile automatic. Las Vegas X rental car with faded paint, and I'm $50,000 into it. It's about to go no reserve on Cars and Bids. You can imagine I'm probably going to lose a little bit of money.
Is there part of you that wants to hold on to it just in case there's some cool come up with them?
Well, there are. I mean, the 996 Turbo is certainly an undervalued car, but it's in a very crowded Porsche market where there's so many special Porsches, and the 996 is always going to be a good value. So I don't think so. That's going to be one. Are you curious though what the best resale cars are? We'll just go through them quickly.
Yes.
So number 10, the Subaru Impreza. So I know that people go crazy for Subarus in certain areas. Like if you have an old Outback in Colorado, like people will leave signs on your windshield wanting to sell it. Like, and people will post in their driveways, like put up a sign saying this car is not for sale because they're just tired of people coming up knocking on the door asking if they'll sell their old Subaru. Toyota Corolla, of course. Toyota Tacoma, of course. Cars that were cheap new that are perceived to have really good quality. The numbers in these are the 70s. So 71% on the Impreza, 72 on the Corolla and Tacoma. The Mazda MX-5 Miata, surprisingly, for everyone except Jake, they hold their value really, really well. Low blow, Jake, because he just, anyway. 72.17%. Then the Honda CR-V, Honda HR-V, cars that you would think, small, mid-size SUV Honda, 72.27 and 72.92. The Toyota RAV4, 73.1%.
Makes
the
sense.
Toyota Land Cruiser, 73.83%. The 4Runner, 73.88.
Of course.
Number one is not going to make you think of course, but it's the Jeep Wrangler.
Well, everyone knows that. That's a given.
Yeah. You wouldn't think so, but they're cheap enough new, and there's a huge market for them used to where they still, like, people will still pay $35,000 for a 100,000 mile 5-year-old Jeep Wrangler Rubicon when a new one's 50 or something like that. So it is definitely a very weird market. Even though they were on the list recently of the slowest sellers, like some of the worst selling vehicles as far as the market day supply, because they built so many of them. So will that change? I think it will, because there's so many right now. And the quality is sort of taking a dip as people start having problems with the Stellantis, sort of the Italian engineered quality getting into these. And I think Toyota has been at the top of the mountain for so long that they're getting a bit lazy.
Oh, you think so?
There's issues with the outgoing Land Cruiser, the 200 series Land Cruiser, where the engine blocks are made out of aluminum, and they made the coolant passages too narrow, and if you don't do coolant flushes, it messes up the head gasket. You overheat it at all. The block's warped. You need a new engine.
You're just doing that thing again where you're talking about cars and you look really hot, and I'm not sure what you're saying.
But
you look good doing it, so
the old Land Cruisers, 400,000 or 500,000 miles is not that unusual. With these, they are fragile.
Yeah.
You can get there, but you have to be really, really on top of the maintenance and not make any mistakes. Like they are fragile.
So they're not going to outlast the older generation, you think?
I don't think so. As they pass hands to owners who neglect the maintenance, they just will not hold up. And Toyota's newest engines are turbocharged V6s instead of just brawny V8s. And even though the outgoing brawny V8 had its issues, I feel like that they will lose their sort of prowess, their status as like the most reliable cars ever, because they're getting a bit lazy, in my opinion.
Do you ever feel like cars do that on purpose because they want you to reinvest and rebuy? You know, like iPhones, they come obsolete pretty soon, so you have to buy a new one. Is there any reason for that?
I think the automakers have made it less of a priority.
Yeah.
Durability, and I think that they're going for fuel economy, and they're trying to hit all the marks for the mandates as far as emissions. And the way they're put together, the way they're engineered as far as being able to work on them, as far as their longevity, I don't think that's given as much thought anymore, which is definitely a shame, most certainly. So, there's the latest list. And I went into my twang there. Thank you so much for watching. Yeehaw.